He sings, "Go, Bo Diddley.
Shut
Go,
up.
Bo Diddley.
He says
Go,
Bo
Bo Diddley.
Diddley?
Go home."
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name is Andy. The fellow over there is John. And what we do is we get together and share music with one another and go off, listen to it, and then come back and chop it up pretty extensively. So, John, you're up to bat as far as offering things up for me. I'm up to bat as far as going off and listening to it. What are we getting into today?
The band are called The Perfect Disaster,
Ooh, it's an interesting name. Never heard of it, but interesting name.
and the track is B52.
Rock Lobster. All right. That's let's get it. That's the extent of that and the actual it's a B-52 fighter jet. Those are the two things that I'm familiar with. So, let me go off and give this third B-52 a scope out from the Perfect Disaster, and I'll come back and let you know what I've made of it. Already really enjoying the sound that they are creating here in the early days of this fairly fairly long track. I love there's this very kind of choppy rhythm guitar motif that's going on, and then this simple but um, melodic, semi-melodic lead guitar bit, if you will, kind of playing over top of it. That kind of strutting bass going on beneath it, along with that simple but very effective drum beat, and then it just kind of pulled back there a moment. But it all sounds really, really good. It's really engaging, and I'm interested to see where it goes from here. Nice. I'm already really loving that buzzy twang of the lead guitar over top of the rhythm. It sounds really, really good. That bass is good too. They're really grooving on this and just kind of like jamming out with that. And it's maybe some might fear the repetitive nature of it, but there's just enough of this little like these little tweaks and variation on the what that lead guitar is doing to kind of keep things fresh and rolling. And it's I'm wrapped up right in it. I'm invested. This has hints of like early noise rock to it. You know what I mean? I mean, I'd love to see where it goes from here and see how much they lean into it or how far they lean into it. as the song progresses, but it's got a bit of that sound to it, like that late 60s, early 70s, just kind of stretching out and playing with the soundscape and repeating a lot, but as I mentioned, tweaking things enough here and there to not make it go stale. This is a lot of fun. Go deeply, go home. And then there was that other voice that came in that had a little bit more, I don't know, life to it. It wasn't as like flat and subdued as the main vocal track, but it is a little bit faint, even though it has more character to it. But it does sound really good together. Um, it's kind of funny that that's the extent of the vocals we've heard in this track. Now 3.5 minutes into it, but I like it. It kind of gives everything room to breathe, and the playing or the toying with kind of flirting with dissonance by the guitar at points is a lot of fun too. They never completely veer off the trail, but they do come really close to the borders, and they change the pattern as they do. And that is keeping, as I mentioned earlier, everything kind of fresh, even though generally speaking, there is some repetition going on here. It's really, really, really sounds good. I gotta say, speaking of repetition and not veering off track, just we're cutting and pasting lyrics here, which is efficient, I guess, and it sounds good, but it's just It's funny that we're over 5 minutes into this, and that's the extent pretty much of what we heard from the vocals thus far. Just perfectly fine. I mean, the movement of the music is enough to keep me engaged. So, that says it all, I suppose. That taut bit of scratchy pickwork on the guitar is just another like little tiny shining example of the little different things that are being deployed to keep the overall song fresh for its listener. Pull that back, I want to hear that again.
Out of this place, I don't care how you get the money. I got no chance to race.
Alright.
Take the president's body, put it on a plane, fly by the time I got to Washington, didn't have a brain. I'm driving your trains, I'm flying your planes, I'm picking your brains. Let me in, then I'll be alright.
That was interesting, right? That's the most robust stanza of lyrics that we've had thus far. And it was interesting. He was talking about, taking the president's body on a plane back to Washington, and it didn't have a brain. I mean, I'm thinking JFK right out of the gates here. I'm probably not the only one who thought that, if those are the correct lyrics. So that's really interesting and evocative, and honestly a thought and a scenario that I didn't think that I would be thinking as this song kicked off, and especially given the scant amount of lyrics we've had thus far and the fact that those we did get were repeated. This sort of thus far standalone stanza with a bit more, I don't know, specificity to it, is interesting that it exists at all. Now, 9.5 minutes into this track, and the subject matter, like I mentioned, is really evocative too. And then he said something about kicking your brains, and something, I think, let me in, I'll be all right. I don't know what to do with that, but it's interesting nonetheless. Really, the more that this plays, the more that the role of that lead guitar, and I say that, I know it's not out here shredding up leads, but it's doing all this interesting melodic stroke dissonant work where it's really, hugging the borders of what is and isn't out of control. And I like that. It's like you're flying high, but not close enough to melt your wax wings. You know what I mean? He's flirting with disaster, but never flying headlong into it. That's a really nice touch throughout all of this track thus far, and I'm sure it's going to continue the same way. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. And it for nearly 13 minutes, it didn't feel like a slog of a tune to sit through. And I think there's two things going on here. The one, the groove itself really kind of sinks its teeth into you. The way the bass, especially, and the drums kind of move just keeps you invested. And then there is this really like it's this relentless guitar. Particularly the lead guitar. Don't get me wrong, the rhythm is doing a lot to work with the rest of the rhythm section to kind of grab you. But the thing that kind of I think keeps you coming back or listening is what the variation that you might hear or possibly miss with all the interesting stuff going on with the guitar, whether it's what they're playing or it's the lead guitar or the sonic nature of what is being played, the buzz, the fuzz, the winding, the bending there, and then like the strum patterns, all of this stuff keeps it very fresh. It's all minor tweaks. They're not like going off into some whole separate movement or attempting to melt your face off or anything like that. It's just all of this interesting, tweaking going on in different ways, so many different times throughout a really long song. So you're wanting to see what's around the corner and if this train is going to veer off the track, and it doesn't, but you're kind of tempted to see how it keeps from doing that. And for me, that's what's so great about it. It is this relentless nature of the guitar, just toying with tone, patterns, notation, all of that stuff. It sounds really great. This does sound very much cut from that noise rock cloth. Now, I know that this came out more recently than sort of the first generation of, noise rock experimentation, which was, I guess, I think of like Velvet Underground as like the late 60s, maybe even some like Zappa or the Stooges stuff too kind of comes to mind. But it's really interesting that this is much later, but they're still tapping into that sound. And I also think it's just, whenever I think of noise rock, it just makes me laugh because 10 years ish before noise rock started to emerge, all rock was noise to a certain demographic. I mean, that's kind of how it was described or poo-pooed when, detractors of the genre were critiquing it during its, infancy. Oh, this is just noise. Wait a decade and figure out, wait till you hear what noise rock sounds like. It's just funny how these things progress and how you can look back through it through like this historical lens and, see how things evolved, progressed, splintered off into their own things. It's just really, really cool and interesting stuff. This song was really cool and interesting stuff. Yeah, I really enjoyed giving this listen. Kudos to, the rhythm section for holding it down, particularly that bass work. I mean, it just had so much personality to it, but I would have to admit, even as a bass player and fan of the instrument, it was that lead guitar that kind of kept everything fresh, different, and it kept me as the listener invested the most, to kind of see where it was going to bend or twist and what was around each corner. Lyrical content, very interesting, you know what I mean? There's not really, outside of that one interesting stanza about the, airplane ride and the president's body and the brains, there wasn't a lot going on, but that was really interesting, that kind of, blurb about the flight, let's say. But yeah, I'm sure John could fill in some of these gaps for me and tell me more about this really interesting band and this sound that they've kind of taken and then injected their, I guess, own personality into. So yeah, a lot to learn, a lot to discuss. Let's get back to John so we can do more of it.
Not to be taken internally. He's back. So you've had a listen to that little ditty B52 by the Perfect Disaster. Race back. What do you think?
Little Diddy, huh? That's how we're describing that. Oh goodness. Um,
Sorry, just to interject, I was originally going to give you the live version, which is a touch longer.
oh,
And the intro goes on for, I'd say, 4 minutes at least before anything happens. It's sort of noodling and sort of, sonic sort of meandering. But, so I thought I'd give you the sort of short,
yeah,
precise
yeah,
version,
the more
the
punchy.
snappy little one.
Yeah, in and out.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. No, to be honest with you, man, it's funny you mentioned that because while it was a really long song, one, it flew by. It felt like it flew by for a song with that time stamp. But also, you just saying that, I could totally see how a song like this can go from a recorded version of near 13 minutes to a live iteration that's 1750 or 20 minutes in length because there is a lot of room to breathe and tinker around
Yeah.
in this track, which is honestly what they do in the allotment given for the recorded version. But I could see them really wanting to spread their wings if they had played this live, and that's you look at it and you're like, holy shit. But you get into it, and by the time you're done with it, you're like, okay, I could have, that was fine. That didn't feel that didn't feel like abuse. Actually, it was great. It was a lovely experience. It kicks off with this choppy, distorted guitar riff, and then the bass kind of struts in along with this simple but effective melodic motif of the other guitar as the drums provide this solid, rudimentary foundational beat, and the singer briefly joins in at the 53-second mark with a subdued delivery, so subdued, in fact, that I didn't even catch whatever it was that he says in this. Like, it sounded like a three-word phrase, or I heard three syllables, but I couldn't pick up what he was. I don't know. Here we go now, or some shit like that. I don't know, but it was something like that. So the song chugs along with this cocksure groove, really highlighted by the fuzz guitars, and that constant bass work, which is really charming. I mean, I would say at the end of this, lead guitar. We're gonna call the one guitar lead guitar. It wasn't playing formal leads, but it was doing lead work. That one the best in this whole song. Then the bass, for sure. The bass had this nice, engaging movement to it. And while it was clearly playing the rhythm, it was the closest thing to another melodic instrument outside of that lead guitar because that rhythm guitar just kept sticking on that riff that it was just playing along with a very, for the most part, simple drum beat. So that's sort of my hierarchy. It's the lead guitar and then the bass, and then the other two instruments were great and pivotal, but not as interesting, I would say, as the lead guitar and the bass. The voice returns at 2:44, and it sounds like he's singing Go Deeply, or Go Deeper. I'm not really sure. This guy had kind of a lazy delivery, which I think matched this really well. It was almost like a lo-fi delivery or like a slacker rock delivery from a vocal standpoint. The music is a whole nother thing. But he repeats this before another voice joins in harmonizing along with him. And the lyrics continue: go deeply, go home. And then I think that stanza repeats a second time, and then the bass then switches up a bit as it kind of moves slightly higher on the neck for a few repetitions before kind of switching back to that original main pattern. And this gives way to some interesting bit of guitar work that twists and writhes at points, but never straying far from the overall motif, but still swerving to and fro within these imaginary borders that it certainly loves to flirt with. As it's like the borderlands of like music and dissonance, and it just butts up against it or comes really close to it, which is a lot of fun. As you're listening, it keeps you invested for something that is otherwise repetitious. So I think that was another reason why I loved the lead guitar so much in this track. So the singer then reemerges to repeat that same stanza of lyrics about going deeply, and home. And we get more grooving Uh, kind of hear from again the bass seemingly steps forward for a bit before the lead guitar bends and winds its way through some really interesting runs over top of that chugging rhythm guitar that I mentioned earlier. And the singer then starts delivering some new and different lyrics as he sings. And this, thank God, because this is really easy to discern. Outside of those first three, like throwaway lines, the rest of everything was really clear. I can feel it just coming on. And then he goes back to Old Faithful, yeah, which is that, go deeply. And then, yeah, all right, again, singing about going deeper. Um, and then this gives way to the song has like kind of like unfolded at this point, and it comes as a little surprise to hear the band continue on this like extended groove jam. Like it just takes up all this real estate on it, which is why I was saying like in a live setting I could see this going on for, or they could really jam out on this for a while. um and there's this brief moment during this extended kind of jam where the lead guitar kind of inserts these taut drum or strum patterns. They're really tight and quick. And it's again these little dashes of variation from what has come before and what will come after to keep everything fresh and from going stale, which keeps me invested. And I really appreciate these little dashes of variance. The jam presses on Sans vocals until about the 8:54 mark, continuing to play with elements reminiscent of like early noise rock. I would say from like the late 60s or early 70s. Some stuff that you've given me kind of comes to mind. Some stuff I already knew about before we started the channel also comes to mind. Um, you know, bands like, I'm thinking Zappa when I hear some of this stuff. I'm thinking the Stooges when I'm hearing some of this stuff. And honestly, I'm thinking of Velvet Underground when I hear a lot of this stuff. This guitar, there's all this room and real estate to breathe and do interesting things. So it sounded great. They I think what kind of educates this is this extended distorted instrumental work. This idea of toying with dissonance and deconstruction, stroke reconstruction, and breaking the habit of popular music's cut and paste kind of structural blueprint. They're coloring outside the lines as it relates to those things. They're playing with more real estate here. I couldn't help but laugh when I was thinking about it because like those bands that I mentioned came along late 60s, early 70s. Rock and roll was still kind of relatively young at that point. And it's funny because when rock was introduced, its detractors called it noise. So it's funny if you just say, "Oh, you have an issue with this." Fast forward 10 years and tell me what you think about noise rock. Then I'd love to hear your opinions on noise, because they took rather accessible poppy rock and roll and were like up in arms about it. And it's like, "Oh, dude, wait till you hear fucking these other bands that come along. Wait till you hear Zappa tinker around on a guitar or you hear Velvet Underground." I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and then you can just keep playing this hopscotch every 10 years. So if you say 57 rock and roll, roughly,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah, yeah.
bit more, but 57, 67 acid rock and all that sort of stuff.
Noise
77
rock is coming around.
punk.
Yep.
Um, 87 you got hair metal and stuff like that.
But also
97,
like prog stuff too is starting to emerge on the
yeah,
scene
yeah.
and really get its and
And
man,
then,
that would be
and you sort of view Jesus and the Mary Chain in terms of distortion into shoegaze.
shoegaze, yes.
And then 97, I guess, would be your sort of Limp Bizkit, sort of that sort of new
That
metal
new
stuff.
metal.
So it's like a 10-year
Yeah.
instead. Yeah.
Yeah,
But people
exactly.
pissed
So
off.
it's funny
Yeah,
how if they
yeah,
had just waited it out to see how this relatively benign sound would take off. It just made me smile and laugh thinking about that.
imagine somebody like listening to like Buddy Holly and the Crickets and go, "What is this noise?" And it's like,
exactly. Yeah.
Peggy Sue, and you're thinking, "This is Red Racket."
Yeah, exactly. Hound dog. Oh my God.
Especially with my Meltle May.
Exactly. What happened to my velvet fog? Um, So yeah, I also thought that it's funny because you touched on this with shoegaze. I could see how a sound like this, and now I know that this came out, I don't know, it said 1980, I think, in what you shared with me. Is that right? Am I wrong in that? It is right. Okay.
You're
So
wrong.
what?
You're wrong. It's 89.
Oh, 89. Sorry. I don't know why I just saw the 8 and went to 80. But okay, so okay, interesting. I know that this is 89, but it sounds like it could have come out or was inspired by the late 60s, early 70s stuff that I was mentioning before. This also sounds like it could easily, this kind of sound sounds like it could easily have influenced shoegaze too. Whereas if you inject different pedals and other effects into this mentality of writing music, then you're left with a guy with the long hair just looking down at his feet, going back and forth from pedals, just milking a motif for all that it's worth over several minutes. Yeah, then you end up with shoegaze. So there, you could also correlate that as well. Um, so yeah, then our singer returns. Got to get me a ticket out of this place. This is the most specific he's been in the entire track, and it's this fleeting moment of specificity and evocative lyrics that, for maybe the second or third time on this channel, lands me thinking about the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Got me a ticket out of this place. Who I don't care who you get how you get the money. I have not time to waste. Took the president's body, put it on a plane. By the time we got to Washington, didn't have a brain. I'm driving the trains. I'm flying the planes. I'm kicking your brains. Let me in and I'll be all right, is what I extrapolated from that. Now, I may have fucked up a word or two that took me on a completely different place that I was supposed to. But, I thought I heard the president's body. I thought I heard a plane ride back to DC, and I heard something about the lack of brains. And those are the three reasons why I ended up with JFK getting shot in Dallas. So I could be totally off here. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But these are some evocative lyrics nonetheless, whether I'm right or wrong, and you can expand on them later and kind of, right the ship if I am. But the band jams out on that, rolling groove from here with some more sonic tinkering by the guitars as we hear darting notes around the soundscape, some forward in the mix, some buried a bit lower in the mix, and we get treated to another iteration of the Go Deeply stanza, again equipped with these faint but complementary harmonies. And this one is punctuated by a more passionately delivered "Yeah, that's all right." This same line is repeated shortly thereafter several times, in the wake of more of that, groove jamming and some great rolls on the drums. And this continues until the drums kick off one final flurry of rolls and the song comes to a close. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this track. This, the groove kind of sinks its teeth into you with that excellent bass work and unwavering drum pattern, while the slight variations on the lead guitar's relentless toying with patterns and notation and sonic dissonance keeps you invested and engaged through the epic Odyssey-like journey of this track. But yeah, tell me more about this noise rock extravaganza, John. I really enjoyed this listen.
Thank you for that, Andy. Yeah, interesting. There's a lot of what you said that I would agree with, and other bits I can elaborate on. I'm ashamed to say I've only known this band for a couple of years, and so I didn't catch it when it was around at the time, although it was very much within my time frame. And the reason I say it's a shame because one member of this band is it's significant, and I should have checked this out a long time ago. But it's great. It's great stuff. Did a few albums. This one's the best one of it, and this is my favorite track on it. And also this track itself, which I'll get into, but it's this perfect sort of blend of from what I hear from it, Velvet Underground, huge influence, but also a bit of sort of krautrock, the way they sort of progress. So you can or you know, probably can more than anything. Dissonance fits in with that, and I would say of all those bands you mentioned in the late '60s, the one that really played with dissonance the most would be Velvet Underground. It sort of really did that, which is great. And also the progression of this song, the way it goes, also really reminds me of a song, John Coltrane Stereo Blues by Dream Syndicate, which someone I think on Coffee gave to Greg. It's a fantastic song as well. And they do a massive live version that goes on for 15 minutes. So they play Doors in the middle of it. I forgot which song it was. Is it Light My Fire or something like that? But anyway, so all of these reasons, I think this is a really interesting song. So I'll get into it.
Okay.
Perfect Disaster, English alternative rock band, formed in 1980. So there's a bit of sort of coalescing here, and people come and go. So bear with me until it gets formed properly. So the first incarnation of the band was called Orange Disaster. And there was a guy called Phil Parfit who's playing guitar, and he's joined by Ken Rennie on bass and Alison Pate on guitar. This lineup just released one 7-inch EP in September 1980, and after this, they changed their name to the Architects of Disaster. So they're sticking with the disaster, they just don't know how to frame it yet. Parfit and Pate were then joined by Tony Pettit on bass and Nod Wright on drums and Paul Wright on guitar. This lineup disbanded after releasing one single as well, which was called Cucumber Sandwich / Friendly Fire. Nod Wright and Tony Pettit left and then formed Fields of Nephilim. Don't get me started. With Parfit recruiting Grant Davison on bass and later John Sutwell joined on bass. So the bass players were coming and going. Bit like Spinal Tap's drummers, but there you go. Dan Cross came in guitar and Malcolm Cato on drums. They then came back in 84 as The Perfect Disaster with an eponymous debut album in 85 and stuck with that name. 87, more lineup changes. Sutwell and Pate departed, replaced by multi-instrumentalist Josephine Wiggs. The band released the album Asylum Road in 88. Cato also left with Phil Outram and Mark Flanshaw joining for their third album, Up, which was this one here, which was released in 1989, and it reached number 15 in the UK indie charts. And on the back of the strength of it saw the band touring with the Jesus and Mary Chain. So the lineup at this point, because it's probably spinning out, people coming in and out. Phil Parfit, vocals, rhythm guitar, acoustic guitar. Dan Cross, lead guitar, acoustic guitar, Spanish. This is for the whole album. Spanish guitar, piano, organ. Josephine Wiggs, bass, double bass, cello, backing vocals, piano. Phil Jack Outram drums. He played on this track, and then Martin Langshaw played drums on two tracks from the album. So their third album, Up, it says here, is a masterclass in the late 80s British alternative rock that bridges the gap between Velvet Underground inspired neo-psychedelia and the emerging shoegaze movement. So right in between, as you said. Yeah. Frontman Phil Parfit delivers lyrics in a deadpan, laconic baritone reminiscent of Lou Reed, while guitarist Dan Cross layers the track with hypnotic, chugging riffs and aggressive distortion. What elevates the record beyond a mere tribute is its structural variety, brilliantly shifting between explosive garage rock, flatlining post-punk tempos, and delicate classical leading arrangements. So within this album, there's 3 tracks in a row called Down. One's called Down brackets Here I Go, and the next one's called Down brackets Falling, and the third one's called Down brackets Down. And then the final track, the ninth track, is B52. And they do some really interesting stuff. It almost sounds classical within it, really sort of changing and exploring things. All music wrote of this album. The album was probably called Up because 3 tracks are titled Down. The sound is engagingly Velvet Underground-like, with a tendency towards long numbers built on a train on a run rhythm that click along until they stop, as does the epic B52, which comes across as a great club number. I think he's thinking about indie club rather than a dance club. The guitars chug along, the bass weaves in and out, and the drummer ticks along like a metronome. Vocalist guitarist Phil Parfit doesn't quite have a tunist voice as Lou Reed, mind you, which is probably to the good. This is one of those albums that winds up getting serious repeat plays. And the Quietus wrote, Up is a hidden gem of 1980s British guitar music. It successfully balances art school experimentation with primal rock and roll energy. For listeners who enjoy the hypnotic rhythms of Spacemen 3, the driving noise of the Jesus Mary chain, or the rhythmic post-punk of the Feelies, this album is essential, highly repeatable listen. Shortly after today's bassist Josephine Wiggs left to co-found The Breeders, securing this album's place as a definitive snapshot of a brilliant lineup at that absolute peak. And their website.
That last critique notwithstanding, there seems to be a lot of unanimity around them sounding similar to the Velvet Underground, which is I have to assume that applies to not just this one track. Maybe it's that album as a whole has a lot of that sound. Okay, interesting.
I mean, the Velvet Underground doesn't have just one sound, obviously, but the way they approach things, there's 3 or 4 tracks in them you could just say are inspired by this one, the most obvious.
Okay. Gotcha.
So there's a website called the New Perfect Collection that says about this song, the album's true crown jewel is a 30-minute hypnotic epic built on a metronomic train on a run drum beat. The track features a continuous scorching guitar solo from Cross, while Parfit rhythmically chants the refrain, which I'll get into. The brilliance of B52 lies in its strict commitment to a steady driving rhythm, heavily influenced by the German Kraftwerk movement, specifically Now, and Velvet Underground's proto-punk Drone. The track is anchored by a relentless drum beat and a hypnotic weaving bass line by Josephine Wiggs. The rhythm section never breaks, creating a tense, trance-like foundation. Over this unwavering rhythm, guitarist Dan Cross unleashes a continuous 30-minute masterclass in controlled feedback and screeching, psychedelic guitar solos. It morphs from subtle textures to a searing wall of noise. Frontman Phil Parfit, there was a deadpan rhythmic chant, and he treats the vocals more like an instrument than a traditional melody. B52 stands out because it predated the mass explosion of early 90s shoegaze, yet perfectly captured the brewing zeitgeist. It shares a sonic DNA with the droning, druggy soundscapes of Spaceman 3 and Loop, but retains a raw, aggressive garage rock edge. I think it's that Dream Syndicate bit there coming in. And the song's rhythm-heavy approach also hints at the musical future of bassist Josephine Wiggs. The rhythmic precision she displays here became a signature element of her next project, The Breeders, which she co-founded with Kim Deal shortly after this album's release. So we get into the lyrics. Now, he doesn't quite say... there's no chance in hell you'd have got the lyrics to this, because it's so, odd.
Okay.
So he sings, "Go, Bo Diddley."
Shut
Go,
up.
Bo Diddley.
He says
Go,
Bo
Diddley.
Diddley?
Go home. And he repeats it, "Go, Bo Diddley. Go, Bo Diddley. Go, Bo Diddley. Go home." I can feel it. Yeah, just coming on. Yeah, all right. Go, Bo Diddley. Go, Bo Diddley. Go, Bo Diddley. Go home. Again. And then I
gotta say, if it was Bo Diddley and not Go Deeply, then this fucking Kennedy brain shit is totally out the window. There's no fucking way that's what...
I think you did all right with the Kennedys. I mean, it could be anything because they're quite out there, the lyrics.
Yeah.
There's nowhere that shows the lyrics to this, so I had to listen and write them down. Got to get me a ticket out of this place. I don't care how you get the money. I've got no chance to waste. Take the president's body and put it on the plane. By the time we got to Washington, didn't have a brain.
Yeah.
I'm driving the trains. I'm flying the planes. I'm picking the brains. Let me in. It'll be all right. And these also says, ba-da-da. Go, Bo Diddley. Go home. Go home. That's all right. Repeated 9 times. And then, come on, baby, as it plays. Funny enough, it just at the time, there's a show in the UK in the 80s called Spitting Image, which was a lampoon of
they brought that back recently, did they not?
Yeah, they did.
Really
and what
perverted, like puppet-looking things that they...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they have that. And of course, this is the height of Reagan. So they had a little mini sort of serial within the show every week for 2 minutes called "The President's Brain is Missing," and they were all going around trying to find Reagan's brain. There's no. It just reminded me of that. But I think JFK is probably a better shout, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So in '89, Wiggs left to join the Breeders, with Saltwell returning, and in 1990 the band issued the Rise EP and then a final album, Heaven Sent, before splitting up the following year in 1991. So yeah, that's the Perfect Disaster. I mean, Parfit went on to work with Spiritualized Jason Pierce and later formed a new band, OG Pussy, which released the band in '95. Contributions from former House of Love and Levitation guitarist Terry Bickers. And he then released a solo album, Parfit, in 2014, entitled "I'm Not the Man I Used to Be." But just on a final note, in 1988, Wiggs met Kim Deal with the Perfect Disaster supported Pixies in London.
Yeah.
So in '89, Deal asked Wiggs to join her and Tanya Dolly, the Throwing Muses, in making the Breeders' first album, Pod, which is a fantastic album, which I love. So Deal, Wiggs, and Slint drummer Britt Walford rehearsed for a week at Wiggs' house in Bedfordshire, and then for a further week with Don Lee in London before driving to Edinburgh to record the album with Steve Albini, and it was released in 1990. So yeah, I mean, I can't believe that I didn't check out her work beforehand, because I love the Breeders so much. But there you go. So I just thought this is a really interesting song. It's got those elements and that sort of groove that you get with some Velvet Underground songs where they chop it up and just keep going until it breaks. But they're doing interesting stuff, and just a bit sort of Dream Syndicate and a bit of Can in there as well. So it makes a really fascinating song, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting to hear that, obviously, what I'm sure surprised you when you did a little digging, that it's tied to this band that you are uber familiar with, but didn't know that this was kind of an offshoot or, on the same in the same family tree. So yeah, it's a really cool, interesting tie-in.
Cool. All right, I shall wrap things up. Thanks for listening, Andy.
Thank you, man. This is a
Folks
blast.
out there, please, if you like this, do hit the like button and drop some comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you're familiar with Perfect Disaster, this song, this album, any other stuff of theirs that we should listen to, we'll take recommendations as well. Have at it. Spill your brains, as they used to say. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. We really appreciate everybody to support the channel. So hop on board. Bring your own duck. That being said, thanks so much for watching. And we'll see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.